So we're going to switch gears and show some of the setup and how the setup process works for the game and give a little overview of that. So this is a hypothetical four-player game. A four-player game uses 6 of the galaxy board regions and 1 central core board. So each player will take their player board, and then each player will take their hand of action cards. So next key piece will be to shuffle up the technology cards, and then we deal 5 of those to each player. So players essentially have a hand of their action cards and then a hand of 5 technology cards. We'll determine a player to start the game as the arbiter, so in this case the blue player, House Daedalus, will start with the arbiter. Next, we give each player their start tile, and then we take the sector tiles and create a draw stack. And in this game, what you do is you select out randomly 8 tiles per player from the stack, or from the pool of total tiles to put into the draw stack. So in this case, with 4 players, 4 times 8, there'll be 32 tiles in the draw stack. We'll shuffle those tiles and then deal 2 to each player. And then starting with the arbiter and going around the board, each player will place their home sector on one of the different regions of the board, and this is where you can use those the red dots on the recommended player setups to give a nice balanced start. Then each player will put the first base of each type onto their start board, as you can see here. So the first complex, the first outpost, and the first embassy. After everybody has done that, again starting with the arbiter, they'll choose one of the tiles in their hand and place it onto the board. They can place it anywhere, but usually you'd want to place it in a position where you could expand into another board. And then lastly, everybody takes the remaining tile and will discard it into the middle to form the sector pool. Put out the remaining cap tokens. And at that point, we're ready to switch over and to look at turn order. So for turn order, for a broad overview, it proceeds through 6 different phases. There's the collection phase, where players earn income. Exploration, where players will be drafting tiles and placing them out onto the galaxy board. Phases 3, 4, and 5 are 3 action phases where players are selecting and simultaneously revealing their action cards and performing any of the allowed actions that are listed on them. And then the last phase is arbitration, where we'll determine the next arbiter and also pay any of the upkeep costs for our empire through that retention limit. So jumping here back to our example, so here's how the game looked after we got it all set up and we're ready to do collection on the first turn. So as a point of example here, here's how the blue player, House Daedalus's player board would look at the start. You can see the first base of each type has been constructed. So they collect caps equal to the yellow number under each of those furthest most constructed base for each of the different systems. So they collect 2 plus 3 plus 4 is 9 caps. And everybody's player board will look like this. So everybody collects 9 caps at the beginning of the game. So they take their money, and that's it for collection. So for exploration, this will start with the arbiter, and there's 2 phases. First, the players will draw a new sector tile, add it to the pool, and then choose any of these tiles and place it out onto the board. And then the second thing that they'll do is they'll draw a new technology card into their hand, and then they have a choice to either discard another technology card, or which could be the one that they just drew, or they can choose to advance a technology by paying its cost. So in this example, blue has chosen to advance their technology card, and they would place that in a slot. And in this case, they would pay the required cap cost of 1 for advancing a Tier 1 technology. So play moves on to the green player. They draw a tile, place one out onto the board, draw a technology card, and this player's chosen to just discard one from their hand, so they're back down to 5. Play moves on to the purple player. Same thing, they draw a tile, place one out onto the board, And you see purple drew the top card of the discard pile. Whenever you draw a card, you can take the top card from the draw pile or the top card from the discard pile if it's one that you like. They then have to discard, so they are going to discard another one. And then lastly, the orange player goes drawing a tile, and playing a tile out onto the board, and then drawing a technology card, and they've chosen to advance one as well and have to pay that cap cost. Alright, so now we're going to switch over onto the action phases. And so here each player will pick a card, and then here's their cards. Everybody's ready. They have one selected and face down, and then we simultaneously reveal all those cards. So one player played Politicized, 2 Industrialized, and one player played Discover in this example. So in the case of a tie, there's 3 players that played a number 2 card. The arbiter gets to decide which of those players goes first. And in this case, they chose to have purple go first. So purple will go first among the players playing a 2 card. So purple takes their action. Going clockwise around the table, it would then go to blue, and then to green, and then lastly out to orange. So we'll talk about each of these different cards in a little bit. That's how the action phases work. We would go through 3 of those action phases. And then lastly is arbitration, and so this is where we would determine who's the new arbiter, and this is the player that has the most money left at the end of the turn, the most caps remaining. So in this hypothetical example, that could be green. They get the new arbiter token. Then everybody discards caps in excess of their retention limit. Usually it doesn't happen too much early on in the game. And then we'll score points for the turn. And so we'll talk about scoring in a little bit.